All right, we'll start in 1 minute. 1 minute. All right, here we go. Homework, any questions on it? Questions on the homework?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to do number 3.
All right, let's take a look at number 3. All right, everybody see number 3? All right, this is how it's done. Step number 1, when you have, well, technically step number 1 was not given to you here. The original quadratic was already factored for you. It factored into these two products right here, 4n minus 1 and 8n plus 3. By the way, this is what we're going to do today as well too. Step number 2 is once it's been factored and set equal to 0, is you take each one individually. So the first one is 4n minus 1, and the second one is 8n plus 3. And you set both of these equal to 0. Once again, the reason for this is that, well, you have two things from the start multiplied together that their answer is 0. This only happens two ways. Either the first one is equal to 0, the second one, or they're both equal to 0. So we set them both equal to 0 because they both could be equal to 0, and we solve each one. Notice each one, and this is as hard as it gets right here. It gets no harder than this. It's just a two-step equation. So you just simply solve it. And look, on both sides, it's equal to 0, so it's even an easy two-step. So on this one on the left, you simply add 1 to both sides, add 1, because that's how you get rid of minus 1. So you get 4n is equal to 1. Get rid of the 4 by division. It's always going to be done the same way each time. So we get a final answer of n is equal to 1/4. Okay, it's a really ugly answer, but to get to it is pretty easy. On the second one, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Subtract 3 from both sides. So we get 8n is equal to, in this case, negative 3. You can easily drop a negative. Divide both sides by 8. 8s would cancel. I forgot to cancel my 4s over here. So n is equal to negative 3/8. So how do you write your final answer? We take this answer and just put them together. You're always going to see them write the smaller one first. And the answer will typically be written with braces. So the smaller one comes first, negative 3/8, comma, and the second one, 1/4. And this isn't a point, like we're not going to graph this thing. This is just saying the value for n that makes this thing true from the very start is either negative 3/8 or 1/4. There's two possible answers. That's how that one was done.
Does it matter which one you put before? Like the other one, can you put 1/4 before negative 3/8?
You can. In fact, I'll clear this whole thing and let's see what the book says that the answer is. The book is claiming the answer is no, they put the positive one first. I was always taught that we should always put the smaller one first, but it's a format. It's not a which one is correct. So I'm not going to mark you wrong if you put the bigger one first.
Can you do number 4, please?
All right, number 4. I'll just say that number 4 is not any more interesting than the previous one. It's done exactly the same way, but I'll do it. Number 4. So we get 7m minus 3 equals 0. And we get 3m plus 2 equals 0. Remember, when two things multiplied equals 0, then either the first thing is 0 or the second thing, or they're both equal to 0. And then you simply just solve this. It's just a two-step equation. We add 3 to both sides. I'm just going to point out, by next chapter, I won't be writing the steps down. We're way beyond solving two-step equations. So 7 is equal to positive 3, divide both sides by 7, cancel, and you're left with m is equal to 3/7. I'm doing this with a mouse, that's why my handwriting's horrible. Second one, minus 2, both sides. So we get 3m is equal to negative 2. Get rid of the 3 by dividing by 3, both sides. Cancel. And we're left with m is equal to negative 2/3. To write your truly final answer, we take the two answers, we put them together. So negative 2/3, comma, 3/7, and put braces around everything. Put braces around everything. Oh, that's a horrible brace, but you get the idea.
Are we learning anything new today, or is it just the same stuff?
We're going to be putting together the more challenging ones to factor, the trinomials where a doesn't equal 1. But the reality is, to answer your question, is no, we're not truly doing anything new today, but a lot of you need some practice with these challenging ones. Hey, the homework's already up. If you feel froggy about it, go ahead and knock yourself out. All right, any last questions? All right, let's grade our homework. Let's grade our homework. So let me share with you the homework. Oops. All right, check your work. Check your work. The answer to number 1 is, let me get there. There we go. -1, 6. -1, 6. The answer to number 2 is -2, 1. The answer to number 3 is, well, we just did it, -3/8, 1/4. We also did number 4, -2/3, 3/7. Number 5 is -3, 2. Wait. I said that backwards. -2, 3. Sorry. Number 6 is -5, -4. Number 7 is -8, -5. Number 8 is just plain old 2. That one factored into x minus 2 times x minus 2, and there's only one answer. They're just plain old 2. Number 9 is -2, 5. And the last one, number 10, oh wait, there was 12. -6, 1 for number 10. Number 11 was -6, -5. And the last, wait, there were 14 of these? Oh, I thought there was only 12. Number 12 is -8, +2. Number 13 is just plain old 3. And finally, the last one, number 14, is -3, 1. Questions? Okay. Moving on. So let's see, calendar-wise, we're going to do the last step. And as I said, Joseph, we're truly not doing anything brand new today. We're going to be doing the more complicated ones. I also review the easy ones, so it's a full review. Tomorrow we'll do a chapter review. It will be a normal thing. I'll say, hey, here's the practice test. Remember the test. The practice test is like the real test. Get started on it. Here are the answers. It's kind of on your own. However, I will remain on live for as long as, or at least for the class period, for as long as you want me to. You can ask any questions, whatnot. If no one has questions, then I'll punch out. But the class will be like, up to the, hey, any questions will be very short, 5-10 minutes tops. Just go over the homework and then say, here's the practice test. Practice test will be live by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning as well, too. So if you don't want to show up for tomorrow, that's fine. If you feel pretty confident, do look over the practice test and make sure that you're making a sound decision, that you don't need any help. And then obviously I can help anyone after say 2:30 tomorrow onwards. But I know a lot of people, Kaylee, have been sending me messages while I'm teaching. So occasionally I have time to answer back, but most of the time I can't answer because I'm actually teaching as well. All right. Here's your homework. Hey, it's another worksheet. Another worksheet. Okay, and remember this is also, well, the worksheet's on the assignment itself. Here we go. So I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you the easy ones and the hard ones today. The easy ones and the hard ones today. So last class, and please remember the comments I made on Friday was, you got to stop me. If I'm saying something that doesn't make sense, you stop me while I'm teaching. You don't wait to the end of class. All right. Last class, we took a quadratic trinomial, like this one right here, x squared plus x minus 6, and we solved this. The process of solving a quadratic is step number 1, you factor it. In order to factor it, you ask yourself, are there two numbers that multiply to -6, that in this case, since there's no number right here, we can put a 1 right there, two numbers that multiply to -6 that add up to +1. So that would be 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. 1 plus 6 is 7, not 1. 2 times 3 is 6. Now it's got to be negative, so one's got to be negative, one's got to be positive. So two of those numbers, a +3 and a -2, multiply to -6, but when we add 3 and a -2, 3 minus 2, we get to +1. So we factor this trinomial. Here are the two products, x plus 3, x minus 2. Remember, everything equals 0. Therefore, that either means this first binomial, the first binomial is equal to 0, or the second one, or both of them are equal to 0. That's the only way when you multiply, you get to 0. So we set both of these that I just underlined equal to 0. This is called the zero product property. We set both of them equal to 0, and we solve. For the smarty pants out there, they know that immediately they can just write the opposite of 3 and the opposite of -2. But for the rest of us, we have to actually set it equal to 0 and solve. Subtract 3 from both sides and we get -3. Add 2 to both sides and we get a +2. These are the easy ones. Okay? This is what you had for homework over the weekend. So we get -3, 2, put inside of braces, and we're done. Questions? Okay? We'll just do a couple of the easy ones today, and then we'll get to the more challenging ones. Here's another easy one. So we got x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals to 0. We're asked to solve. So for those of you that can do it in your head, and there's plenty of you out there that can do this, you do it in your head. For the rest of us, we got to think of what two numbers multiply is +12 that add up to +7. Well, let's see, 1 times 12 is 12. That adds up to 13. That's not the answer. 2 times 6 multiplies to 12, but that adds up to 8. That's not the answer. We better hope there's another one. 3 times 4. Oh, yeah, that adds up to 7. So we're going to rewrite this entire trinomial as x plus 3, x plus 4. So remember, what two numbers multiply to 12 that add up to +7, right? I forgot that I actually did this. 3 and 4, so it turns into x plus 3, x plus 4. Then we use the zero product property, and we set each one of these, x plus 3 and x plus 4, equal to 0, and we solve each one. Now the easy ones, well, there's not much work here. You subtract 3 from both sides. You subtract 4 from both sides. The more challenging ones, the ones that we'll do today for homework, they require a lot of work. But for the easy ones here, you can immediately jump from this step to the answer. If you need to write this out separately and solve it, by all means, go for it. But most of us can look at this and say, oh, then it's -3. Oh, it's -4. Okay, questions on this one? Okay. Let's do one together. Write this down, please, on a piece of paper. X squared plus 8x plus 7. For those of you that know what you're doing, go ahead and do it. For those of you that want to do it step by step, I'll wait on you. X squared plus 8x plus 7.
The ones in parentheses on the worksheet, those are like the answer, and then we have to turn back to the original form.
Yeah, and like I said, usually when we teach this, we the ones in parentheses, we want to just give you a chance of doing the very last step. Because if you can't do the last step, then it's kind of not, the purpose of it is ruined. So we want to make sure we can be able to do the last step. So the first couple ones on the worksheet were just, hey, it's just the very last step. Just get used to doing that. All right, so this one we're looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 7 that add up to 8. So 1 and 7, 1 times 7 is 7. Oh, and 1 plus 7 is 8. Oh, we're there. One step and we're done. So we write this as x plus 1, x plus 7. Now, it does not matter whether you put the 1 first, right, or you put the 7 first, because they both add up. So x plus 1, x plus 7. And I should.
Wait, now I'm confused.
Do you agree that 1 times 7 is 7?
Yes.
Do you agree that 1 plus 7 is 8?
Yes.
That's the answer. So, and I should say the intermediary answer. So we take what's in this red box right here, we write x plus 1, the 1 came from right here, and x plus 7, the 7 came from right there.
Is this tomorrow's homework?
This is just a review. I've been teaching this for a while. I know that everyone arrives at this point and they're still struggling with these easy ones before we even move to the more challenging ones. So I always put some 3 or 4 examples right from the very start just to get us used to this. By the way, these will be on the test though, the easy ones. I'll put like, I don't know, 3 of the easy ones and 1 of the hard ones on the test. Okay, so we take each one of these, final step, and we set each one of these equal to 0. This is called the zero product property. Either this thing is equal to 0 or this thing. Because remember, the 2 multiplied together is 0. It only happens if one or both of them are 0. So we set this one equal to 0, that's the first one. We set the second one equal to 0, that's the second one, and we solve each one. The first one, clearly we subtract 1 from both sides, we get -1. Second one, we subtract 7 from both sides, we get -7. We okay?
I'm a little confused on
part?
most of this.
Is it Sarah?
No, it's Joy.
Okay, so what you need to do is you need to think of this as you win this step. This is step number 1. You watch the first, or you watch the middle term, 8x, and the last term. This is called the b and the c values. Okay, so we're taking a look at this value and this value. We ask ourselves, we start with this, the last term, the c value. We say, well, what 2 numbers multiplied are 7? There's only 2 numbers that multiply are 7, is 1 and 7. I mean, if this number was an 8, then we would get a 1 and an 8, or a 2 and a 4. But in this case, it's 7. There's only 2 numbers multiplied. When we add these 2 numbers, we get to the c or the b value right here. So we rewrite this whole thing as the product of 2 binomials. The 2 binomials will be what 2 numbers multiplied to 7 add up to 8. That's 1 and 7. So 1 and 7 are what goes inside my binomial right here. The last step is we take each one of these, the x plus 1, that's that first binomial, and we take the second binomial, the x plus 7. The zero product property says when something equals 0 through multiplication, check it out, it's multiplication right here, that either this thing must equal 0 or this thing must equal 0. So that's why we take each one separately and set them equal to 0. And then we solve them. It's just a one-step equation. This is -1 and this is -7. Therefore, the 2 answers are -7, -1. The question was, which one comes first, which one comes second? It is customary to put the smallest one first and the biggest one second. But you could write it as -1, -7. Any further questions? Remember, this all builds upon the fact that we've been doing this for 2 chapters. It's not that this magic came about just in one class. This came about through an entire 2 chapters worth of work. All right, one more easy one. If you know what you're doing, get to the answer. If you don't, I'll walk you through the steps. All right. In this case, our c value is not +8, it's -8. and our b value is positive 2. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 8 that add up to positive 2. So we can consider negative 1 and positive 8. We can consider 1 and negative 8. We could consider 2 and negative 4, or we could consider negative 4 and 2. So these are my possibilities. There are no other two numbers multiplied that give me negative 8. One of these, if this is factorable, one of these will add up to positive 2, and that is this one, negative 2 and positive 4. That is the one that adds up to positive 2. 4 minus 2 is positive 2. Is everybody okay? Okay, so we're going to rewrite this trinomial in this form right here. X is going to be x, and the two numbers are going to be negative 2 and positive 4. Zero product property says when two things multiply equals 0, either the first one or the second one or both equal 0. So we set each one, x minus 2 and x plus 4, equal to 0. And we solve each one. It's just a one-step equation. Add 2 to both sides, we get 2. Subtract 4 from both sides, we get negative 4. So the final answer is negative 4 comma 2. Just to show you it works, just pick one of these, 2. 2 squared is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. It worked. It will also work with negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. 16 minus 8 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. These are the two numbers that makes this equation true. This is the process of solving a quadratic trinomial. That is factorable, I might say. All right, questions? Well, fortunately or unfortunately, Julie is saying she can't unmute. Let me manually. Oh, it won't let me do it either. Julie, press the space bar and talk. No joy? Somebody press the space bar and talk. Chris, I can see Chris trying. It's not, I don't know, there must be something weird going on today. It's not letting.
It worked for me.
So Riley it works for, but apparently everyone else it's not working for.
I don't understand what
No,
you mean
I can talk.
talk.
Okay.
Because the space bar doesn't work.
Julie, try again. No, maybe it's just Julie. Okay. We're going to move on. Julie, if you want to get some private tutoring after this, we're going to probably end pretty quickly here. Hold on. I'll restart the meeting and see if you can join. All right. Look at this one. So I need two numbers that multiply to positive 3 that add up to negative 6. Positive 3 that add up to negative 6. So if we consider every two numbers that multiply to positive 9, that's 1 and 9 and 3 and 3, that add up to negative 6. Wait a minute, 6 is negative, so we also must consider the negative possibilities. Not only does 1 times 9 equal 9, but negative 1 times negative 9 equal 9. So the key here is you kind of stay on top of this and you're like, oh, this one's negative, so this one would have to be either this third or this fourth one is the answer. One of these adds up to negative 6. Oh, it's this last one. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. So we rewrite the first one. The first one is x minus 3, x minus 3. Once again, this x is always going to be whatever that variable is right there. These numbers right here, minus 3, are the what's in the red box. The nice thing about this one, oh, by the way, this is one of those special cases. Typically, we just don't even know it's a special case until we get to the answer. We take each one, we set it equal to 0, but they're the same thing, so I only need to set one of them equal to 0. And just solve. Add 3 to both sides, so we get 3. 3, I'm going to claim, makes this 0. 3 squared is 9. Minus 6 times a positive 3 is negative 18. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0.
What if there's three numbers, like 2a squared minus 9a plus 9 equals 0?
One more time, Chris.
What if there's like three numbers? Because on the worksheet it says, for number 3, it says 2a squared plus minus 9a plus not equals
Yeah.
0.
That's the very next thing we're about to do.
Okay.
Okay, so ends all the examples of the quote, quote, easy ones. For those of you that are still struggling with this, what I would recommend is you take over the weekend's homework again, and you practice with those again, now that I called out the answers. If you forgot to copy down the answers, remember this is being recorded. You can just play this video again and check out what I call out as the answers. But at least it will give you practice on the supposedly easy ones. I know for some of you it may not be that easy. We're going to move on to the more challenging ones, different technique, at least to factor it. To get to the final answer, it's the same technique, but to factor it, it's a different technique. I will promise you on the test, there will only be 2 of the challenging ones, but there'll probably be at least 4 of the easy ones like this one. So you gotta know how to do both, but I'm gonna give you more of the easier ones than the more challenging ones. So here we go, the challenging ones, So this is exactly what Chris said. And what happens if there's 3 numbers here, a 6, a 7, and a 2? Well, we got to go back to that old technique. I didn't give it a name, but it's the one where a doesn't equal 0. So notice there are not 2 numbers that multiply to 2 that in fact add up to 7. 2 times 1 is 2, and that does not add up to 7. So we got to use that other technique. This will be messy as always. Remember, the old technique is you do a times c. 6 times 2 is 12. Now we think of factor pairs of 12 that add up to 7. So it's kind of got the same flavor as the previous one, but it's slightly different. So factor pairs of 12 that add up to 7. 1 times 12 is 12, but that adds up to 13. 2 times 6 multiplies to 12, but that adds up to 8. 3 times 4 multiplies to 12 and does add up to 7. So slightly different than the previous technique. The next step we do is, well, we're going to rewrite the 6x squared plus 7x plus 2 equals 0, except we're going to use, instead of 7x, we're going to use 3x plus 4x. And all I do is attach in an x right here. 3x plus 4x, because 3x plus 4x is 7x. So I haven't literally physically changed the values here. I've changed what it looks like. This is that old one where we do the next step is we do parentheses, 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 parentheses. So I'm looking at the first 2 numbers, or 2 terms, and the last 2 terms. I'm going to factor each one separately. To factor the first one, what goes into 3 and 6? Well, a 3. What goes into x squared and x? Well, an x. So I'm going to factor out a 3x. Where did I get the 3 from? Because what goes into 6 and 3? 3. What goes into x squared and x? The smallest one, x. And then I do this old trick of what times 3x is 6x squared, that's 2x. Or, if you want to think about it with division, 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. Okay? 6 divided by 3 is 2, x squared divided by x is x. What times 3x is 3x? Well, 1. We do the same thing to the second thing. What goes into 4x and 2? A 2, so we factor out a 2. 2 times 2x is 4x, and 2 times 1 is 2.
So all we really have to do is just do the outside numbers and leave the one in the middle, and then do that little chart thing. And
Yeah, and just remember the first one, this was the Julie thing. The first one will always have an x in it, and the second one will not. Okay. To write it in its final factored form, we write what's inside the parentheses, 2x plus 1, and what's not in parentheses, 3x plus 2. You remember doing that? So the first binomial is the 2x plus 1, and the second binomial are the 2 terms that are not in parentheses, 3x plus 2. Once again, this equals 0, and it seems like we're done. This is the middle point. So all we did was take this trinomial and we factored it. Hey, we're done with factoring. I'm going to need more white space. So I'm going to take this last step right here, get rid of everything else, and I'm going to solve this. Okay? So I'm going to take this binomial, set it equal to 0. I'm going to take this binomial and set it equal to 0. Okay, so I needed some extra space, so I got rid of it. So I take this first binomial, set it equal to 0. I take this second binomial, set it equal to 0. Now it's not a one-step equation, it's got 2 steps, but they're not that bad. On the first one, we subtract 1 from both sides, we get -1. We divide both sides by 2, we get -1/2. All I did was divide both sides by 2. On the second one, we subtract 2 from both sides. It's going to give me a -2. And we divide both sides by this 3. Okay? These are the 2 answers. And yes, it'd be nice if you put them in order from least to greatest, but it's okay. So the answers are -3/2 and -1/2, or -2/3 and -1/2. That is a lot of work. That's why these are the challenging ones. I'll put 2 of these on the test. Questions? We're going to do more. All right, write this one down. 3x squared plus 14x minus 5. 3x squared plus 14x minus 5. Okay. We're looking for, oh wait, it's the hard one. So we can't say there aren't 2 numbers multiplied -5 that add up to 14. 1 and 5 don't add up to 14. So this is one of those ones where we got to multiply a times c. So we're going to multiply a times c. So let's see, a times c, 3 times -5, 3 times -5. Sorry, Julia, apparently we're having some audio difficulties. She's sending me a chat saying her audio is messing up. 3 times -5 is -15. The one nice thing, Julie, is that we are recording this so you can play this at your own speed when we're done. 3 times -5 is -15. And now we think about the -15 and the +14. So we're thinking of numbers that multiply to -15. That would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5, and then the negative portions of those. So 1 times -15 or -15 times 1. 3 times -5 or -3 times +5. One of these adds up to 14. Well, that adds up to -14. That adds up to -2. But this one right here, -1 and a +15, adds up to -14. Why did I write a 5? This should be a 5 right here. Okay, ignore that one. All right, we okay? So this is the one right there that I want to use. Now I'm going to rewrite the middle term as -1x plus 15x. See what I did here? You're like, well, where's the -1? Oh, it's there. I just chose to leave it off. Next step is we look at the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms, and we factor each one separately. 3 and a -1, there's nothing in common. But an x squared and an x, there's an x in common. So we factor out an x. What times x is 3x squared? 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. X times x is x squared. What times x is -x? -1. X times -1 is -x. On the second binomial, we can pull out a 5. A 5 would be common between the 2. So if I pull out a +5, 5 times 3x is 15x. 5 times -1 is -5. Write it final factored form. It's what's inside. Notice the magic here, 3x minus 1, 3x minus 1. So we write the final form as 3x minus 1 times what's outside, x plus 5. So the final factored form is 3x minus 1, x plus 5. What we're really doing is factoring out a 3x minus 1 from both binomials. All right. We did all that work and we're only halfway there. Now we need to take each one, 0 product property. We need to take each one and set it equal to 0. That's the solving portion, and I need space. So I chose to leave off the work here, so I'll show you the work. So the first one would be 3x minus 1 equals 0. And if we solve that one, add 1 to both sides, that would give me 3x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 3, you get x is equal to 1/3. On the second binomial, this one here, we set x plus 5 equal to 0. And we solved that one. That one's easy. We just subtract 5 from both sides. So we get x is equal to -5. There's our two answers, this one and this one. So when we write both of those, we would write -5, comma 1/3. There we go. Questions? This is a lot of work. For those of you that, I forget, a couple of you were joking about, yeah, Mr. C always says algebra gets hard. Well, it's hard now. I mean, this is like no joke. This is, I mean, if you find this fun, then you got the math gene. If you don't find this fun, you don't have the math gene. But I'm just going to claim that all this time when I said saying that algebra gets hard, it is definitely challenging stuff. I don't know, we could count up how many steps we just did. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 steps to get to the answer. So yeah, I wasn't lying to you last year and this year when I say that algebra is challenging. Just so you know, it doesn't get any more challenging than what we're doing right now. It's, you know, we will get new stuff that you're unfamiliar with, but it doesn't get much more challenging than this right here. It certainly gets easier as well too, but it doesn't get any more challenging than this. This is probably one of the most challenging things we do the entire year. All right, anybody questions? Nope. Well, let's do another one. All we're gonna do is practice, just practice. Okay. Julie's audio is messing up. She dropped out. She's going to watch the recording. Hey, Julie, since you're watching a recording of this, if you run into problems, just remember tomorrow when we do the review and everyone else punches out, you know, they're like, okay, I got this. I'm just going to take the practice test. If you want to hang on live tomorrow, and, you know, we can do a, you know, a one-on-one tutor. And this goes for anyone as well, too. If you just want to hang on tomorrow after I say, all right, any questions? No, get started on your practice test and just hang on and we'll spend the entire class helping you out. All right, here we go. It's one of the more challenging ones because remember, when A doesn't equal 1, these are pretty quickly done. So we got to do A times C. 6 times -5 is -30. Now we need factor pairs of -30 that add up to +7. For me, I just do them in order. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 6 and 5. And we just write all those possibilities out. Oh, I forgot 3 and 10. And remember, we got to consider one's positive, one's negative, one's positive. So all those possibilities. Turns out the only one that adds up to +7 is this one right here. In fact, I didn't need to consider the opposite of this one or the opposite of this one. It was just 3 and 10. And you'll get a pretty good feel. I know some of you already got this, right? Some of you can look at this and do this in your head. A +10 and a -3 add up to +7. Now I'm going to rewrite the original trinomial with the b value, the +7x, as -3x plus 10x. So I rewrite that. -3x plus 10x is 7x. So I haven't technically changed any values here, but I've certainly visually changed what it looks like. I rewrote the middle term. Done. Just remember, for test taking strategies, you can, you know, pause the video, rewrite this one example, have this sit right in front of your face, and this would certainly help you. All right, this was Chris' question, so I had to basically look at this number and see what they have in common. That's correct, that's a 3. I look at x squared and x, what do they have in common? It's x. This was Julie's comment. Will you always pull out an x of the first one? The answer is yes. What times 3 is 6, 2. What times x is x squared, x. So 3x times 2x is 6x squared. What times 3 is 3, 1. What times x is x, 1. But I got to make it negative, so I multiply by -1. 3x times -1 is -3x.
Mr. C,
Yep.
are we able to do a couple from the worksheet?
Yeah, when we finish here, you can pick a couple and we'll do them.
Okay.
What's common between 10 and 5? That would be a 5. Now, I just caution you, notice both of these, the second number was the one they had in common. It's not always the case. I mean, if this had been -15, it would still be a 5 because 5 would go into 10 and 15. So don't just think that the pattern here is I just take this number and put it right here, take that number and put it right there. I'm looking at what is common between 10 and 5. That's a 5. What times 5 is 10x? That's 2x. What times 5 is -5? -1. But notice the magic here. I mean, the magic is that once you get this first one here, the second one's going to match it because it's factorable. It's also a way of checking to see if you're doing it correctly. All right, so the factored form would be what's underlined here, 2x minus 1, and what's not underlined here, 3x plus 5. Hopefully now you're seeing that pattern really clearly. All right, scratch work. I don't think I did the scratch work. Did I do? No, I didn't do the scratch work, so I'll do the scratch work for you on this one. So we take the first one, 2x minus 1, and we set it equal to 0. We set it equal to 0 because it equals 0. So this times this equals 0. One of these things has to be 0, or both. We add 1 to both sides. We get 2x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2. We get x is equal to a half. On the second one, we get 3x plus 5 equals 0. All right, this one will be the ugly one. Subtract 5 from both sides. We get 3x is equal to -5. Divide both sides by 3. We get x equals to -5/3. All right, an ugly result, but it's just a number. And at this point, that's all we have to do with that is write that as the answer. So -5/3 and +1/2. Questions? Okay. All right. Pick one of these all by yourself. See if you can do the whole thing. Pick one of them. Don't do them both.
So.
Pick one of them. I'll give you a minute head start. All right, I'll do the first one first. So I need to do a times c. A times c is -18. 1 or -1 times +18 is -18. I got to get to -3. 1 and 18, I don't care how you arrange the positives or negative, you're never going to get to -3. 2 and 9, that also doesn't get me to a -3. 3 and 6, though, I need to get to a -3, so we make the 6 negative and the 3 positive. 3 minus 6 is -3. So I'm going to rewrite this as 18x squared. I'm going to use this result to write my middle term. Remember, I always recommended you to write negatives first, positives second. So -6x plus 3x. You can still get to the right answer if you don't do that. You just got to be careful with the second binomial, -1. And if you do put the -1 second, factor out a negative number from the second term. All right, someone's certainly not paying attention. All right, we're looking at that binomial and this binomial that we need to factor. 18 and 6, what comes out of that is a 6. It's the biggest number. And x squared and x, that's an x. So let's see, 6x times what is 18? Well, it's certainly times 3. And x times x is x squared. So this times that, 6 times 3 is 18. X times x is x squared. 6 times what is -6? A -1. And 6x times -1 is -6x. Okay, that worked out. So the magic will be that the second one will also have this. We'll check it out. There's nothing common between 3 and -1 except for a 1. Okay, there's an x here, there's no x here, so there's nothing else in common. So I pull out a +1, and I literally get 3x minus 1. 1 times 3x is 3x. 1 times -1 is -1. Once again, we got that magical match right there. The factored form will be the first thing, that I underlined, 3x minus 1 in parentheses. And the second thing will be, I left off my 0 on each one, I apologize, equals 0. The second thing will be what's not underlined, the 6x plus 1, 6x plus 1. and that whole thing equals 0. Zero product property says that either this is equal to 0, this is equal to 0, or they're both. So we take each one separately, 3x minus 1, set it equal to 0, and we solve. Add 1 to both sides, and we get 3x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 3, we get to our final answer. 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. The second one, we get 6x plus 1 is equal to 0. Same thing as the first one. Subtract 1 from both sides. 6x equals -1. Divide both sides by 6. We get x is equal to -1/6. We take these two answers, that's our final answer. So we get -1/6, comma, 1/3. Put that in braces, and number 1 is done. That's a horrible brace. Second one, big number. 16 times 3 is 48. 48. 48, 48, 48. Let's see. We need to multiply to get to -14. It's not going to be 1 and 48. Is it going to be 2 and 24? No, that doesn't get me to a 14. 3 going to 48. 3 times 16 is 48. That doesn't get me to just 4. Yeah, 4 times 12. Oh, we're getting closer. 4 times 12. Does 5? No. Does 6? 6 times what? Oh, 6 times 8. And you see what I mean? If you kind of give up halfway, you're not going to get this one, but check it out. 6 times 8 is 48. And if, let's see, if both of these were negative, negative times a negative is a positive, that worked out. And these two add together is -14. So it's these two right here. Okay, so we're going to rewrite it. 16x squared minus 6x, so they're both negative, so I can't put the -1 and a +1, minus 8x, it's okay, plus 3. Parentheses, 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 parentheses. The first one is 16 and a 6. The biggest number is 2 and an x. What's times 2x is 16x squared. 8 times 2 is 16, and x times x is x squared. What times 2 is -6? That's a -3. 2x times -3 is -6x. I'm going to claim the second one. I'm going to get that. Notice it almost already looks like that, except one's negative, one's positive. So when the first number is negative, always put out a negative number. The only thing they have in common is a -1. -1 times a positive 8x is -8x, and -1 times a -3, and look at that magic. Look, it turned in exactly the same thing. So final factored form is 8x minus 3. And what's not in parentheses, 2x minus 1. 2x minus 1 in parentheses. And once again, I left off that it equals 0. I'm not being a good math teacher today, but there we go. Fix my mistake. We take each one, set them equal to 0. 8x minus 3 is equal to 0. And on the second one, 2x minus 1 equals 0. I usually write both of them just so I don't forget. Solve each one separately. It looks like we're going to add 3 to both sides. So 8x is equal to 3. Divide both sides by 8, and we get x is equal to ugly number, but it's no big deal. Second one, add 1 to both sides. So we get 2x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2. We get x is equal to 1/2. So there's my two answers. Which one is smaller? 3/8 is smaller than the half. So comma 1/2. So I'm going to claim that those two answers are the real answers. I'm going to erase all my chicken scratch, writing with a mouse, and let's see if I agreed with the book. I did, and this one I did. There we go. Cool. Questions? All right, we got enough time. Somebody requested, I'm going to skip this one. Enough time to look at one of the ones from homework. I just got to pull it up real quick, and then we'll call it a day. All right, was that Sierra that wanted to see one?
No, it was me.
Which one do you want to look at?
Let's start off with number 3.
All right, let's start on number 3. Here we go. Let me share this and we'll go. And this will be the last one we'll do. All right, this is from homework. Can everybody see that? Take it no one's saying no, so that means yes. No means yes. Okay. Here we go. A times C, 2 times a positive 9 is 18. Factor pairs of 18 that add up to -9. So let's see, 1 and 18, that doesn't get me to a 9. 2 and 9 gets me to an 18, but 2 minus 9 or 9 minus 2 doesn't get me to a -9. I hope this works. How about a 6 and a 3? If they're both negative, they would multiply together. That's a positive 18. Added together, that's a -9. So there are the 2 that we're going to use. And notice my technique once again is I start with 1, then do 2, then do 3. That way I don't skip any. Because a lot of times when you're trying to think and do this in your head, you can run into issues. All right, I'm going to rewrite this as what? 2a squared minus 6a. It's so much easier when we just stick to x's, minus 3a, I got those numbers from right here, plus 9, and that whole thing equals 0. Parentheses, 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 parentheses. Out of the first one, 2 and 6, I can pull a 2 out, and an a. 2 times what is 2? 1. A times what is a squared? A. 2 times what is -6? -3, and a times 1, so it's a minus 3. I'm going to claim this is going to be the other one. Notice this first number is negative. This is where we're going to pull out a negative. A 3 and a 9, I'm going to pull out a -3. That's what's common between the two. Why negative instead of positive? Because this first one is negative. The first thing right here is positive. Pull out a positive. -3 times what is -3a? Well, that's just an a. -3 times a is -3a. -3 times what is positive 9? The only way that happens is if it's a negative times a negative. Hey, look, it happened. It worked. Got the same thing. Final factor form is what's in parentheses, a minus 3, times what's not in parentheses, 2a minus 3. 2a minus 3. And your a's start looking like 9s if you're sloppy like me, so be careful. We take each one individually, a minus 3, set it equal to 0. Hey, that's really simple. Add 3 to both sides, we get a is equal to 3. The second one, 2a minus 3, set that equal to 0. Add 3 to both sides, 2a is equal to 3. Divide both sides by 2, and we get a is equal to 3 over 2. So I'm going to claim the two answers are 3 and 3 over 2. 3 and 3 over 2. I got a button here that I can press that'll tell me the answer. I shall press that button. Of course, it's in red right here, but you can kind of see it there. 3, I got 3, and 3 over 2, I got that as well too. There you go. And we're out of time. Anybody, questions? Okay.
Do we have to do all of them?
I want you to do as many as you can within an hour. Like, I don't want you to work over an hour, but try to do as many as you can.
So none, okay.
Well, technically that would be 1, Chris. You can at least attempt 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Try 1. Just remember what I said on the test. I will put 4 of the easier ones and 2 of these. And then we'll do a review tomorrow and we'll go from there. All right. You guys have a wonderful day and I will see you. Oh, somebody send me something in chat. Yep. All right. Just did that. We're good. Yeah, that's it. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.